Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Rich Kirkpatrick, author, consultant, speaker, and musician. Please enjoy Rich Kirkpatrick. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I am here with Rich Kirkpatrick, author, consultant, speaker, and musician. Welcome to the podcast.
My pleasure to be here, Mari.
I'm super excited to chat with you about creativity because I know creativity is a part of your life and a part of the things that you do. But before we dive into that, if you would let our listeners know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My most recent accomplishment is I just published a book called MINDBLOWN, Unlock Your Creative Genius by Bridging Science and Magic. So that just came out at the end of last year, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. Comes from me trying to figure out. I started as a young person in religious institutions, which were very strict. And I'm a creative person. So I was like, something is wrong here. I'm asking too many questions. I'm getting in trouble. I don't know why. And so my journey has been, starting off as a church musician, and then, I was a jazz musician, and, in different venues, finding out, wow, what is it that people don't understand? And I thought something's wrong with me, but then I realized, well, no one's perfect. So it's not that something's wrong with me. I just don't know what this is. Don't know how to describe what I need. Yeah. And so over the years, it's always been in the back of my mind, when I was doodling on my desk, there was a purpose for that, so I can pay attention, being ADHD, which I found out later in life because my adult daughter, who's an artist, she found out as an adult that she has ADHD. My son at 9 years old, we found out he has it. And so I haven't, so you can't turn things off. But that kind of helps part of creativity, to be able to just have this mind that's opened. But sometimes you can't turn it off when you need to. As a young person, you learn that. So this journey I've been on, doing music and being in religious institutions and being a person who's been a speaker and a workshop presenter, everyone's, wants to be more creative, but we all somehow, when we get like 9 years old, we start to taper off the things that we thought we are normal to do. Like, just everybody could draw at 6 and 7 and 8. Everybody could dance, everybody could sing, everybody could do all those things. And then as we get older, we started hearing, no, you're not doing it right or whatever. And your options become limited as to what you can express. And so my experience is just, post-traumatic stress a bit. Some experiences really were difficult trying to explain, to understand myself. So this journey of creativity, which even led to this book, really came from just trying to become more self-aware. And as somebody who, as I gotten older, people, looked at me as a mentor and a friend they can just dump on, and it usually comes with these things. The same kind of things would keep coming up about those things. And so my story is that I have a family, 2 adult kids. They're both really creative. And my son's a streamer and wants to be a TV writer. And my daughter is an illustrator, graphic designer. She did some of the illustrations in my book. And my wife's an educator who, because she knows education, she's been an incredible life partner in helping me understand or know where to look or to think about that. So anyway, so it's a little bit about me. I live in the East Bay and just east of Oakland, California. I'm originally from San Jose, from Silicon Valley. So I kind of feel like adjacent nerd adjacent.
Nerd adjacent, I like that. Sure. Yeah.
And growing up with computers being taken apart in my house by my older brothers, and all my friends as they grew up, who are musicians, became software engineers or executives. And then there's me, the creative guy who was just around those people. So that's a little part of my story too. And in my book, I talk about some of those things and,
Yeah.
engineers and robots and wizards and all that. But anyway, so that's a little bit about me.
I love it. I love all of it. The robots, the wizards, the pieces that showed up, and how you really discovered more of your creativity by being curious and asking questions, even though it may not have gotten you high marks. It sounds like in certain areas of your life.
Well, the footprint is still on my backside.
Yeah.
A couple,
Well,
I won't go into it in detail, but
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. At a certain age, we do start to get that external information about, oh, that's not, this creative outlet is not for you.
you're being the kid who got in trouble
Yeah.
for doodling and daydreaming and asking questions at the inappropriate time um, was something. But my wife, who she studied child development, early child development, so she was just gave me lots of information about how the brain works, and so over the years I've been really curious about that stuff because it's I wasn't going out of my mind, so
Right.
I was mind blown at the fact that maybe I'm normal. 20%, I guess they say, are divergent thinkers to 80% of the
Yeah.
population. Some people say that particular number. So if you are an adult and you're in that category, people don't get you all the time, not very easily.
Absolutely. Well, with all of this kind of curiosity and experience of your own creative journey, what does it mean to you to be creative?
I really had thought about that, and the way I describe it is, it's making something that's both useful and beautiful. I
Oh.
was always told if something is just utility, then it's great. That's what creativity is. That's what innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Move fast and break things, as long as you innovate. But no, it has to be beautiful, and beautiful means, in its essence, something you can't really capture. It's fleeting. The sunset, you have to go and find it, and it may not happen every night because of the cloudy day, or you couldn't get to the perch where you could see the sunset. Beauty is that kind of a thing. So there's this part of creativity that transcends that, and that transcends just utility. And so part of the how I'm looking at that, something original and useful, but also that has a potential to really offer meaning to people. And what that is, I don't exactly know. I'm not an expert on everybody's,
Sure.
mystical, metaphysical understanding, but I do think it's pretty common to understand that when we see something great, just the gasp of a sunset or the taste of some meal that you've never had before, that's amazing. There's certain things that are beautiful, as well as being useful, because the meal that was tasty also nourishes me.
Right.
So I think something is beautiful and useful, and it doesn't have to be. I think the idea of originality too is interesting because creativity is really an iteration or of things that it's not necessarily completely from thin air.
Yeah.
We have to have something in us that does that. Some of it maybe from our genes or from what we've heard and grown up with. And as a musician, you listen to certain music and all of a sudden that's in the back of your head. It's like a reservoir holding things. And so it's kind of a freeing thing to understand that I don't have to create something entirely new, but my creativity can be expressed in a way that makes it something more useful or more beautiful than maybe it was before. So that's kind of how I see creativity.
I love it. I love the kind of synthesis of useful and beautiful and how they connect. And is that the kind of connection between science and magic that you explore in your book?
Yeah, I think really we have two sides of a coin, and you even see brain networks, for instance. So you have divergent and convergent thinking. You have to switch between these two things, where one is heavy on executive functions and the other one is takes opens the gate a little bit So you're not judging everything. And
Yeah.
so these are different things. They seem opposite. So you're in the imagination side, the magic side, um, of things. And then there's the other side where, how do I make it? How is it, I know I see yellow, but what kind of paint is going to work for this project? What kind of a yellow is going to capture that? And then I need to, deconstruct and reverse engineer that. And so these two things, really, the bridge between them, some people call it like lateral thinking, where it's a switch, but there's actually a third brain network involved, where you move from one way of thinking to another way of thinking.
Mhm.
And the people, apparently, according to the research I was reading, who are creative geniuses are able to go quickly between these ways of thinking. But the thing is, you can't do them at the same time. And you can't somehow have this completely open mind to new ideas and then all of a sudden be judging everything at the same time.
Right.
Um, there's somebody who described it as gas and the brake at the same time. So creativity gets logged. But you have these things that they seem like they're opposite. They're kind of opposite, but they're really just they're like taking a step with each leg.
Mhm.
We need to do both. I need to be that kid who is daydreaming and doodling, but also need to be the adult who can then take those ideas and explain them to people in a logical way. So that's where science, the logic of it, um, is. So, magic is kind of the idea of imagination,
Mm.
and science is the idea of logic. And so that's where there's beauty and usefulness. There's something that bridges these two things. And I think that's what makes things really unique. Because I
Mhm.
can have an idea that sounds, oh, that's a great idea, but if nothing happens or nothing's done with it, then it's not really useful.
Right. It's just an
Yeah.
idea you had.
And we all do that with friends, maybe when, we can change the world, we're sitting around drinking beer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's easy, that part's easy, it seems. But to
Mhm.
really say, okay, now out of all those things we're dreaming about, what steps can we take? What iteration can we make with what we have around us? Because I think also creativity is about invention as opposed to intention,
Yeah.
where um, we see what's around, and as like a shipwreck, and the French word for inventor, I think it is. I don't know French very well, but it's like you go and you get what you can out of the shipwreck
Mm.
and do something with it.
Mhm.
And the same thing with creativity. What can I do? Go back to my life as a musician. Okay, here's what I have. I have these three musicians, and they have these limitations. Here's what I can do. I have to invent something. Now, if I want them to play a symphony, but there's three of us, then that's my intention doesn't matter. In other words,
Yeah.
so yeah, we can intend to do a lot of things. I want to solve, world hunger.
Right.
Okay, but what iteration am I going to choose that's going to go in that direction? And that's
Right.
where creativity really comes in.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Absolutely. I love it. And thanks for sharing kind of what the science and magic in your book are really speaking to, because I think that's important for people to hear. Now, working in and with creativity, I imagine you kind of have come up against your own creative challenges. What are some of those more creative challenges that you have been faced with, and then how did you navigate them?
One of the things that surprised myself is that we need limitations defined. So
Oh.
I call it the blank canvas panic attack.
Ah.
Somebody asks me to do something, Rich, write a song.
Right.
I said, okay, well, about what? Where's it going to be played? It's like saying to a painter, I want you to paint something for me, but okay, a mural? Is it on canvas or wood? Is it,
Right.
what is this? Is it digital? Is it, what is it? And so the canvas becomes, extremely important. And I see that the thing in my own challenge is defining. I call that the sandbox. It's a place where we have to discover, just like kids, where are the fences so I can know where I can play within. And
Mhm.
once I know those parameters, then I'm free. But we actually are constrained or paralyzed without constraints.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I don't know the constraints or I'm confused by them, I maybe as a younger person I wasn't assertive enough by asking enough questions of the right kind.
Sure.
Um, those kinds of things, to not get that information really would be a thing that would set me back.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then learning, okay, here are the parameters. So I find it very interesting. And in one meeting that I was in, where there was a guy who was executive of a Fortune 100 company, raised his hand and says, Rich, I thought artists and creative people don't want any boundaries. And then I explained this idea to him, that limitations, we absolutely have to work within them. And I even think it's kind of like a mystical side of it, because, like as a person of my faith, there's this idea of miracles, or, say the miracle of Jesus at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
People can understand that. Well, it happens in a time and place. There's
Right.
an actual minute to it. There's a geo location of it.
Sure.
In GPS, you can say this and the time that it was. And so even with the most amazing miracles that have been recorded, or at least that people believe in, happen in time and space. So why would we not understand that and give ourselves rest? And that's why self-care and all these other things are important, because we have to live within our own sandbox, which what are my limitations?
Yeah,
I need 7 hours sleep. So just so you know.
7 hours of sleep. Perfect.
At least.
You're so right. That panic of the blank canvas that many people connect with, and having boundaries or some limitations really allows our creativity to flourish and come alive. So thank you for reminding us of that, because I think you're right. The head of the company who says, I didn't think creatives wanted any boundaries. And it is a misconception that creative people are wanting no limits. You might find that is true if you're doing something just for yourself, but if you are doing something for someone else, you're going to need a little more.
Well, we want to know what the real facts are. Now, we're not going to project. Creative people are going to project, and I tell management people this.
Yeah.
They don't want to tell you how little money they need. They want to know the max level. They want to know what is your pain threshold, so they don't have to keep negotiating and they can get to work.
Right.
And that's kind of this panic you have, because I want to get to work. I want to do my best work. That's what creative people's how they think. And so if somehow I'm strung along thinking, well, how about 2,000 for this project? Oh, well, okay, but how about 5? Or so that's been for me, the greatest challenge going in. Someone saying, what budget do you need, and not being able to know that.
Yeah, it's something I haven't thought about in that way when it comes to that financial piece, because you're right. Creative people want to just get started. We want to get on with the work versus, spending, or in your mind, maybe wasting time negotiating.
It's very taxing. We want to conserve as much brain power to make something.
Absolutely.
And there's people who enjoy the chess of negotiating. I would say creative people, that's probably one of the challenges that I share with most creative people, is if we can minimize that, you're going to get a better result.
Right. Yeah. I love it. Well, you shared a little bit about kind of your own childhood and your curiosity and navigating creativity as a kid. But I'm curious, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Wow. I used to daydream. I can remember 2 years old. I used to dream of things. I'm trying to think of imaginary friends.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I was 7 years old, and I fooled my parents into thinking that Billy and Sandy were real. And we took a road trip all the way from the Bay Area up to Canada, Vancouver, Canada. And I think past Portland, they still were thinking that I made something up that was, true. I didn't make it up. But then they found out, okay, this kid's making something up. Oh boy. Okay. Now we're just playing along. And it was no fun for me anymore. I remember as a case, now they know. Oh.
Right. Now they know, and so it's not as fun. How long? But it took them several hours to figure this out.
Yeah, actually, 2 days.
That's longer than I was thinking it took them. Okay.
Well, we were going up slow on the coast. I remember that part of it. So
Yeah.
the Oregon coast, Northern California, and the Oregon coast are just amazing. So we would stop, and you know,
Yeah.
it was before Port Townsend, Washington,
Okay.
that we found out.
I love it. If as a creative person and a daydreamer in your life today, who or what inspires you?
I think the thing that I get most inspired about is in partnership or collaboration. It's like
Mm,
I can almost assure myself that if I'm going to co-write a song or I'm going to put on an event, and I get to work with another person or a team, it
mhm,
just I have an absolute belief somehow that something mystical is going to happen out of that group, and it inspires me to look forward to that. What's uninspiring is when it's just me, and other people who are creative. They're more introverted, so inside it all comes there, starts there.
mhm,
For me, it comes from, I'm having coffee and we're talking about, what we're gonna do. Uh, um, and it's a catalyzing thing for me. So so I would say those are that's what in that particular setting inspires me. Um,
mm,
you know, um, so I guess that the what would be collaboration and the who would be the collaborators. And the more I've learned that, the more it's freed me up ego wise to say, okay, it's going to be more interesting when I don't have to be alpha on everything. Um,
mhm,
this is great because we can share, and this person has the microphone and they're going to come up. We're shaping this thing.
mm, yeah.
And this idea of, I have this kind of idea that I got from a mentor. You can be famous, but you can be an influencer of influencers and really make a change in
Mhm,
society. And
mhm,
so, wow, that's a lot better for me. So if I can influence a situation and the influencers of that situation to create something, and maybe I get some credit for, which is great, and a little bit of living, which is great. But that really is how I think a mark is left. It's like the idea of you can plant something that you're a tree that the shade you may not enjoy, but
mhm,
you're a part of that.
mm.
And that kind of thing inspires me. This sense of altruism and a sense of collaboration, and that keeps me going.
I love it. That collaboration piece, I think I am inspired by as well. And so it makes a lot of sense to me in my own life. And, working with in the fields that you work, I imagine you meet people who don't believe that they are creative. How would you encourage others to find creativity in their lives?
That's an incredible issue to address because
Hmm.
that is what people say. I'm not creative. And I would tell them this is that, you know, listen to the scientists,
Hmm.
listen to the philosophers, listen to every major religion, listen to basically what humanity is. Basically, in my opinion, creativity is just another way to describe what humans do when we thrive. You might be creative, I would tell this person, and not even realize it. That doesn't mean you're not creative.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I came up with these two cartoon figures. The
Yeah.
wizard's kind of like me. You get a dream and an idea, and it's kind of messy, and you kind of workshop it like the theater people do until it kind
Hmm.
of evolves. And that's how the wizard works. But the robot is like the scientist. So you might be creative, and it's just a matter of
Hmm.
kind of seeing how you need to start. And I would say it's not just
Right.
that there's these two ways. It just, as an example, we are different as people. We're going to approach things differently, and that has to do with our profession, our personality, the context. Um, but I think the idea that you're creative, if you think you're not creative, you can learn to be. And if you're already creative, you can learn to be more creative. And I think that's kind of good news for folks, because for a lot of us, that's how we make our living. We have to do stuff.
Yeah. I love that reminder that we can be creative and we can be more creative in what we're doing as well. That has been something that I've definitely experienced in my own life. And it sounds like you have as well. This has been such a fun conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I think it feels like I'm both connected to my body, and I'm kind of floating. I'm kind of soaring in a way. It feels, I'm closing my eyes right now, just thinking, what does that really feel like? It's kind of both being present for myself while I'm doing something, performing. And I think as a performer, if I'm, it's not just, which is a creative act too, even though it may seem you're just muscle memory, but it is something that wow, that's a great question. Yeah. So I would say just being present. I feel integrated, like I'm here. And when I'm not creative, disassociative. I'm not really connected to what's going on.
Yeah.
I
love that description of it, really being really connected to yourself and really present of what it feels like to be creative for you. So thank you for sharing that. It's been such a treat to chat with you. If people want to learn more about what you do, where to find your book, how could they go about doing that?
The easiest way is my website, rkblog.com.
Okay.
And I'll have whatever there. And I just write about creativity, belief, and leadership and how those intersect.
Oh, I love it. Well, I will put that in the show notes so people have easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
And I have too, Mari.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.